Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining another episode of the Immergence Show, where we talk about the intersection of emerging tech, immersive experiences, and pop culture. You know, we love fashion, and today we're going to talk more about the fashion, tech, and how we can scale startups to build partnerships and do great work. Before we get started, I have been traveling for 3 weeks, so our show was a little bit on and off, but we're back to the schedule. So we're going to be back every Tuesday, 9 a.m. PST, with really great lineup of speakers. But today, I had the pleasure of having one of my great friends, Fiona Desaney,
Mm.
that has been a friend of mine since Metaverse boom. I think we got to know each other, and she was at a time working at Farfetch, leading the innovation. And we have stayed in touch. She's joined other great companies and have done more work that is very impressive in this space. So I invited her to join us and share her experience. So thank you so much for being with us, Fiona. Tell us more about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me, Nico. Great to be here and yeah, to see you again in virtually, as we always meet virtually. um, so, what I can tell you, but I've been in this space of like, let's say, brand experience and immersive brand experience for some time already. I've seen the evolution of marketing, like for brands and different supports, different platforms, different tools, and basically I've been leading my way from 2D to 3D in some way, um, through different companies. Like I also had my own company. We'll talk about it in fashion rental. Then I moved more in the community side of startups, and then joining Farfetch. So really at a corporate level, running innovation there, and finally being with a startup, more Series A, working on a specific product to basically augment brand experience. So I've been seeing different sides and different countries as well. And now I'm based in Lisbon, but I'm French. I lived in London, I live in Singapore and Milan. And yeah, basically, I'm still in a very exploration mode. I think we are learning every day with new tools. But at the end of the day, it's all about reflecting, a brand and an identity and how to resonate with customers.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And to our amazing audience, feel free to introduce yourself, ask questions. We will cover them as we go. So I want to touch on some of your past experiences. You worked at Sephora, you worked at Burberry, and then, ASUS, all these great companies. And then you transitioned to your own startup. So can you tell us a little bit about what are your learnings from all these different experiences being in the marketing side, and then innovating and creating a startup? How did you kind of like transition to all of that, and what were your learnings and aha moments?
Yes. So I've been lucky to start early, basically my experiences through different companies, as also doing internship and being really close to people who were really moving the company at the innovation already, like at Burberry, for instance. I remember at my time we were looking at Foursquare. So it's some time ago already, more than 15 years, 10, 15 years now. Foursquare, we were looking at how to leverage Facebook at the time and even send like a sample, a perfume sample to everyone who were liking the page, for instance. So it was crazy at the time. Um, so I've been nurtured in an environment where people were already moving things, but still also looking at tools like CRM. I was working in the CRM side of Sephora, so really looking also at personalization, loyalty from early on, um, and um, and I decided to launch my startup right after my studies, even during my studies, in fashion rental, because I've been in fashion already, but I was I was really trying to connect with this idea of playfulness of fashion that I was not seeing too much basically in in the industry, and how we could come back to this idea of like sharing clothes, sharing wardrobe, having access to new clothes, and still with the idea of sustainability that was at the very beginning, because we were in like 2012, 13, and at the time it was we were talking a lot of collaborative consumption. It was the beginning of that, but not so much sustainability.
Hmm.
So launching this fashion rental marketplace with Rendezvous, which was peer-to-peer, and then more designers. Um, but that basically opened to a new conception of fashion, a need that people had and wanted to, they wanted to get closer to that. But of course, then it was to find the right approach, the right business model, the right process. And rental is, of course, a very challenging journey as well.
Amazing. And you were truly an innovator because there are so many of these fashion rental marketplaces now. But at the time, 2014 to 2017, it wasn't as popular as, or as understood that this is needed. Um, do you have any thoughts of like what do you think has shifted?
You mean in terms of like why it became more popular?
Yeah, why the adoption is happening now?
Yeah, I think that it's a question of education of the audience as well. Like people had no idea about rental before they were renting, a car or a tool maybe, but really not fashion. And I think it has needed really time to build trust and also to shape, new behavior. And I think also sustainability really became a really strong topic for the new generation as well. For people when they buy, when they access to a product, they also want to make sure they consume well. So I think that has a big impact, and of course scale. I think now, because there is more acceptance, let's say, of this process, brands are more ready to be involved. There is also more tools to make it work. Initially, like we had to build our own, rental platform ourselves, and everything was very complicated. There was no like real tools for that. um, but I still believe it's a challenging journey. I feel that brands are going more into it, and they see they can recycle their collections. They can make the most of it, attract a new audience that may never be their clients at the beginning, but they see it more and more as a loyalty process as well. It's still logistically, it's still a complex journey. So it's great also to see like startups getting into it and actually succeeding as well. But yeah, I think it's a massive ecosystem to build, and in a way, it also shaped me in my partnership journey, because this process and this concept is anyway a partnership ecosystem. You have to have dry cleaners, logistics, designers. You have a lot of different basically part taking it involved.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, right now, I think one of the most successful ones is Noe, which is by Urban Outfitter, and they kind of figured out the infrastructure because it's their own combination of brands. But otherwise, I think it's harder if you don't kind of use your own existing infrastructure and funding from a big brand. But great, that's how I'm an entrepreneur as well, and I know how much learning that goes into having your own startup. So I'm sure that was a great foundation for you to then join Farfetch as an innovation principal, and then with Imperia. So tell us about kind of like what the work that you did at Farfetch and Imperia, how much you can share. That would be awesome.
Sure. Yes, so I've been lucky to join Farfetch at a time where it was really extremely successful. It was after the IPO of Farfetch in 2019 that I joined, and it was really the golden state of Farfetch basically. We were a very small team, and we were only three to be the innovation team for the whole company. so covering all the markets, all the different departments. And our role was really to basically identify the right needs for the company, the right gaps, to find the right startups, the right business solutions that will really fill this gap and help us to grow and to scale. And that was basically for all the department, from marketing to CRM to logistic to creative operations. So I've been really learning a lot through this journey, because I've been lucky to go very close to the team, each team's understanding their needs, their problems, and it could cover, as well, like open banking, very different topics, basically. So it was really the most entrepreneurial role of the company. And the goal was really to build the trust also between the startups and the teams, and really find fit the right proof of concept to test something and basically grow, and or hopefully scale it through a strategic partnership or maybe even an acquisition. So that was Farfetch. And Emperia, it's a different journey. So that's also why, like, partnerships mean very different things. Even if I was innovation in Farfetch, we were basically doing a lot of partnership in a way with the startups, of course. But here, my role at Emperia was really about building an ecosystem of partners, strategic partners that will really help the company to grow with the right features. So a bit like the same that Farfetch, but on a very focused approach on the product itself.
Mhm.
And Emperia is basically a digital world solution connected to e-commerce that really empower, augment brand experience on the e-commerce website of the brands. And also to really build an ecosystem of partners that will help us scale and sell the solution, like consultancies, agencies, like basically leadership, thought leadership, like also like partners, to really educate as well and reassure the audience of why this tool will be, a great tool for them to increase their e-commerce, to increase their conversion, their retention.
Beautiful. Thank you. Is there any example you can share from your Farfetch innovation partnerships that you found very impressive, that would be beneficial for our audience to know?
Yes, I can show a little video, which is a bit of a reel of things we've been doing at the time. So we can share the screen, and I will just, and it's actually the slide 9. Don't know if you, if I can do it. Okay, that's great. So basically,
If you want to do it full screen, then that would be good. Okay, awesome.
yeah. So that's just a little video that we made on, like that was already into 2021 maybe, but 3D assets. This is digital dressing that we've been doing with DressX, for instance. This is
Mm,
with 3D, and how we did like short videos on, focusing on the product and on the attribute of the product. This is virtual try-on, what we've done with watches, with Chopard, for instance, or like shoes as well. And we've been really the first one doing really scaling virtual try-on in such a company of this scale. And we really focused on watches and sneakers are our first things. We also did, this was just a part of a live streaming that happened as well with Albert Elbaz, actually before he passed away. And this is our first digital world that we actually created at Farfetch at the time, for in partnership with Burberry. Um, and this is also digital dressing again, with
yeah.
DressX as well. So it was extremely interesting. This is the last campaign was made. Sorry, I think we can unshare right now. Yeah. This last campaign with the digital dressing was made for the launch of pre-order of Farfetch. So
Mhm.
it was really a big thing at the time, and so basically at the launch of the pre-order, we could show all the product worn by the models in digital shooting, virtual shooting, but also influencers that actually really were sharing picture of them wearing the product as they had received the product. And it was really a very successful campaign, and the first time we could really scale the benefit of 3D for at this level, from photo shoot to influencers.
Amazing. So partnerships of a startup that is DressX with Farfetch, that was, a giant marketplace at the time. And can you tell us a little bit about these challenges and, kind of like opportunities with these? This is definitely the way that the industry is moving towards, to be able to see the items on yourself before you're actually buying it, especially if it's a high priced luxury item. But at the time, it was probably a very novel experience. What did you observe and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I think we started very early at the time, where first there was absolutely no knowledge of 3D in the company and in any fashion company at the time. So it was very new, and it was also hard to educate, I think, on the benefit of 3D,
Mm,
because compared to 2D pictures, of course it's more expensive, it's more complicated to do, especially when you have a very strong process in place already for photo shoot, as Farfetch had. So we basically, at the time, it was also not easy to get the best quality at the best scale, and either we had really really good quality and very expensive, or poor quality and less expensive and also easier to scale volume. So it was hard to find, and it was really a big challenge for us to curate and scout the right 3D asset partners, because at the end of the day, for any 3D experience, whereas it's like digital world, virtual try-on, digital dressing, gaming, you name it, at the end of the day, the quality of the 3D asset is really, really key and always matter a lot, the most, especially when you want to reflect something photorealistic, as it is so important in the luxury industry, basically.
totally.
So we had to really find these partners to really create the trust with the teams, basically, and to reflect the same level of quality that we could find in our pictures, actually.
Mhm.
What was super interesting is to show that 3D was actually helping beyond 2D, because we could reflect the true colors, for instance,
Yeah.
whereas with lights and so on, maybe you actually don't reflect the right colors of a product.
Mm,
You reflect materials, you could reflect details and features that you couldn't really show from the pictures itself. And of course, we could create something way more interactive, way more personalized, with the idea that people could, of course, try the item, see the item in their environment with their own things, a watch with their bracelet, their shoes with their pair of jeans or whatever. And that was already like a massive step compared to the level of personalization we could offer normally. We're looking a lot at fitting rooms and so on, and that was very complicated actually to implement. So we knew that there was a big stake for the customers to see how it looks on them, how it fits them as well. We couldn't really apply the idea of accuracy in terms of size, and that's why I think there are new things coming right now, but for a long time virtual try-on was really limited to accessories, because it's very
mhm.
complicated to reflect on the size actually of the body and the accuracy. And when you buy a piece of clothes, you really want to see the size. It's not the same than an accessory.
Right.
So yeah, so basically we we saw and like the team start to see the benefit of 3D, and also the benefit of return on investment, which is if you have one 3D asset, you can actually use it for multi-purpose, multi-platform, from marketing to e-commerce, to gaming. You can use it, reuse the asset. Whereas, of course, if you do like campaigns, you have to reshoot, or reshoot again the asset, do again and again. So that was something that was also at the core of how this could be actually a cost center, like a saving center, let's say saving cost center for the company. But of course, like it needs time and it needs the right infrastructure.
Awesome. So you basically understood the quality expectations, standards, requirements from Farfetch, and then translate that to what's needed to bring in from the startups. And that was the measurement criteria to find the right partners. Awesome.
Yes.
And what I've noticed, you mentioned that you guys were innovators in the try-on space. I actually remember that you guys had your own app as well, right? Was it Where or something? And so I'm curious, and I know you had your own kind of like digital experience and stuff. Under what circumstances, at least for your experience, these kind of marketplaces or bigger brands are looking to partner versus are looking to build their own in-house solution?
Yeah. Um, so I think it's always a big topic in corporate innovation. I would say for brands to understand like what's the limits, where they should do it themselves, where they shouldn't, and there is also a big culture usually in tech company, and Farfetch was a tech company built by a developer initially, in the idea that like you need to build yourself, and especially if you have the resources, or if you have the tech people involved, and if it's a tech company, you should build yourself and you should not rely on partners. So it was very challenging. I can show you this in the first slide that I had. It's an interesting, sorry, I'm going to do it like this. Yeah, it's an interesting
Mm.
uh, um, like I don't say it's an interesting like template uh, from some friends of partnership shift, that is basically showing when to actually partner and when to build, and there is two parameters. One is time to market, so is it urgent or is it non-urgent, and like of course because you have to deal with roadmaps and in internal roadmaps of the company, and what is core to business or not. And so basically the idea is usually that when it's urgent, it's better to partner, and to be very agile, not to lose time, and to be keeping it up with the market, basically, because sometimes it can take like crazy time to do. And also, if it's not so core, it's actually good to partner as well. But basically, if it's really core and not urgent, it's of course better to build. If it's really core and urgent, sometimes it's actually better to acquire, to really own, basically the technology. So I think it's an interesting template to have in mind. Of course, we were in innovation space. We were really in the exploration, so we were in the proof of concept,
Mhm.
but, and the goal was really to show that partnering was actually the right approach, and we could validate that with the proof of concept. And the goal for us was really to keep it up with where we should be, which space basically we should be in, without having to rely on years of development, as it's normally the case, and to accept that our expertise was not everything. And I think that's the starting point as well, is that when the company start understanding what is their core expertise, and that is why it's also core to business, what is their core expertise, and what is not, and what will basically enrich their solution without having to build it themselves.
This is super helpful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure like there's so many details into it. And Farfetch was such a unique company because they are tech focused, but not every brand has that tech element. So if you can expand on like that urgency side of the axis, how do you define the urgency?
Yes, sorry, I think we stopped the. Did we stop the? We
No,
can
I'm
stop the.
still sharing. So you,
Sorry, we can do it. Yeah, it's good. What was the question? Sorry.
so the urgent axis that you had in the chart, how do you define that urgency?
I think it depends on like the markets and where you see opportunities and how you see also competitors going on into it. So when you see like there is a key market opportunity, you know that you have to be part of this space. You basically it's become something like important to be at the front basically.
Mm,
The time to market is really key as well. Also, it can be also an idea of release, when you plan to release something as well. Are you missing a part? And also I think it's not, there is this idea of urgency, and there is the idea also of like what type of roadmap you have already for core things, and how to what extent there is actually space for anything else. And at Farfetch, it was very hard, of course, because we had the same resources than everyone else. So
mm,
we didn't have specific tech or product team. We were really depending on the core team. So it was very hard, of course, to also rely on them to innovate, and even to be able to collaborate on a proof of concept, because they had to, of course, even if they are not building, they have to be involved to assess, to
yeah.
coach, to brief the proof of concept. So that was also the challenge of being in big corporation as well, that of course have their day to day to do, and to make sure that everything is working well, every day.
Yeah, it all comes down to resources. So innovation team without the tech team, they cannot do much, obviously. So that's very
It
important.
was a lot of influence, and business case also. Like, it was really, the goal was also to really prove the value of integrating innovation, like, we were not it was also hard to get credibility, and you had to build your own culture of innovation, because
Mm,
in a company where there is no culture of innovation, people will think, oh, this is just a gimmicky things, it's a nice to have, but it's not necessary. But
yeah.
the idea here was to show that this is actually part of the culture, and that we really understand also like the needs, and this is really starting from a very strategic uh, point of view, and the goal is really to help and enable them to do better their job.
Mm. This is such a valuable point that you just touched on, because often we think of innovation team like it's so fun, you are exposed to so many cool things, but in reality, there's so much politics that needs to go into it to onboard and campaign people to actually dedicate their budget and resources to support it. So thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that. This is definitely very helpful. So basically, to summarize, the urgency axis is of these trends that come in. So there was the metaverse trend, there was the virtual try-on trends. So you want to be on if you want to be on top of the trends, that's where you kind of go about this, and you either partner or you acquire the technology. So thank you for sharing that. Now let's look at the other side of this partnership, which is the startups, the innovators, like Imperia. So from their perspective, at what stage you kind of decide that it is time for partnerships, and then there are again different angles you can look at it. You could directly go to a brand and work with them. You could use a middleman like an agency, and then there are different types of agencies. You have marketing agencies that don't really do any tech. Then there are tech agencies, they do some hands-on as well. So how did you go about decision making on when is the right time and who are the right partners?
Yes. So I think it's a very different perspective from a startup, of course, because it was really deeply integrated in the culture of the company already. Because I arrived very early in the company. I mean, right after, like right before, actually, their Series A. But that was really a will, I think, from the CEO to have, a partnership culture in the company and to build an ecosystem, because she was also, I think, seeing it as a way to build influence, to build a reputation, to build awareness, to build trust, but also to grow, and grow with the right partners and grow even the product itself. So we had already, so it was partnership at a very different level. This And it's also why it's so interesting to be in this field at this time of a company, because it's involving a lot of things, from strategy to product, but also of course sales, because you actually partner also with brands, or you basically take a different perspective to talk with clients. And this is actually indirect sales as well. It's just like creating a different flow, a different stream to build connection relationship with the brands, and of course onboard them certainly towards sales. So that's the thing. And then as I was saying, like, I think the product of Imperia is also very interesting, because it's a playground. Let's say it's a foundational platform. It's a platform solution. So the idea was really to be the destination for the key destination for digital world, and really and integrate a lot of different experiences, a lot of different features that would be all into this digital world. And the power of this solution was that it's a embedded solution, browser based, that you with an iframe that you can have on your e-commerce website, that reflect very qualitative 3D experience, that is that has no loading time, and that is really creating an engagement from the user, but that also involve all the necessary parameters, criteria that you want when you are in e-commerce. So basically, it means that it takes into consideration the data tracking for engagement, retention, conversion, how people move in the space. So it's really giving the opportunity for the brands to capture data that they will usually don't have access to.
Mm,
I think this is why I thought it was a very interesting solution at the time, because we were actually in this buzz of metaverse, but metaverse was very disconnected from the brand's experience and from the brand's environment. So it was usually happening in different platforms that were nice, but very hard to drive the audience, very hard to recreate a link for return on investment for the brands to really connect to their key performance indicator, which is like engagement, retention, conversion. All of this, they couldn't really add this back to to their term sheet and say, okay, this is what we've done, and this is how we sell more product at the end of the day. So I think it was super interesting to have let's say the metaverse experience, but which is basically a more like you know uh, immersive experience at the end, but at the same time to really reconnect with the parameters that really matter for the brand.
beautiful. And how did you go about, choosing who to partner? I understand that from the perspective of a startup, it's all about getting the reputation and credibility, and using pilots and partnerships to lead to that bigger sale. But you have tons of options. How do you choose at what stage you want to work it with the marketing agency or tech agency or a brand directly?
So I think we had a first, of course, I was coming from a very product and platform perspective with Farfetch, and I've been very involved in the 3D development of Farfetch. So I knew very well this industry. And I think we had already the need to make our process more scalable and easier, because even just to create a world, we were not doing ourselves the 3D assets. So initially, we were working with freelancers and so on, and it was very expensive, very also time consuming. And so, of course, I brought in the partners I had before in terms of like the companies that could automate 3D asset creations, for instance, and that had already the level of quality we're expecting, and the scale. So that, for instance, was the first move. Then it was, of course, to keep up with the requirements of the brands. I mean, let's say the expectations, not requirement, but more like, virtual try-on is a thing. Of course, Web3 was the thing. So how, like, basically we integrate that, and without being ourselves the expert, without, having the expertise, how do we serve each other, for with the partners, knowing that we had this ability to be a bit this playground for experimenting for the brands. So the brands knew us already, or they had some trust in what we were doing, especially in luxury, because we could really reflect very well their environment. We could also really integrate in their e-commerce without, trouble or any, friction. But many of our partners, they didn't know them so well, and themselves as an experience alone was a lot of due diligence, a lot of work. Whereas if they were integrated into our experience, of course, it was one single integration for all, you know. So it was a way also for the partners to build trust with these brands by integrating in an exclusive way, or in a very privileged way, let's say, their solution, and get the brands interested and continue the journey with them or with us at the same time. So we work like this with virtual try-on, with Wana, for instance, or like with another company called Momenti. I can show you, for instance, we can show maybe the slide 17.
I think you should share your screen first, and then I
Yes. I need to do it myself.
And we have some great questions from Gabriel that we'll get into in a minute. But thank you so much, Gabriel. You always ask best questions. All right, so here is your screen.
So I'm just showing you, for instance, this is like an experience for L'Occitane that we've done, where you can see that basically you can click on the product to actually test it. Um, and so basically here it was more about the idea of live streaming, like how to integrate the live streaming experience. Here it was what we've done with Wana. Sorry, it's a lot. Everything is at the same time. um, yes, so this was with Wana, and like how we with Lululemon we integrated
The virtual try-on.
the virtual try-on, where you could directly, sorry, it's a bit long, but yeah, basically you could just click on it and go into the virtual try-on. Yeah, sorry, it's a bit long, but anyway, that was to
This
show you.
Farfetch, or these are not Imperia products, right?
This is Emperia. This
Oh,
is
this is
this.
okay.
Yeah. And this was also Emperia. So it was also with a company that enabled to try the product, was very interesting as well. So basically, you could actually tap, like play with the product and press it and see the texture of the product, or move the hand and so see the texture. And it was also super interesting, of course, by just using your screen. So all of this is just was a way to add features into the journey, basically.
Awesome. And I would imagine that not all of these were built by Imperia, like the live streaming or everything.
No,
So
all of this was actually partners. All of these were partners.
partners.
I
Oh,
mean, Umbrella was really about this experience here, which is really the digital world itself.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. So, okay, so the rest of it was more finding other tech partners, um,
Exactly.
and then create something magical together. Awesome.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
But then how about integrating it into a brand? Was it easier to go directly to the brand or working with an agency that already had established relationships with the brand?
You mean to work directly with the brands?
Yeah.
Yes, we've been lucky to have great relationship with brands. So we were actually going most of the time directly to the brands. There are some opportunities we had through partnership or with some of our partners, especially more in the let's say metaverse like Roblox and things like that, that help us to get other opportunities where we, for instance, been a gateway. We turned the digital world as a gateway to access Roblox experience, Ready Player Me experience, Decentraland experience at the time, the same experience from the brand itself. So it was very interesting also for the brands to aggregate all of this experience in one place on their e-commerce.
Mm,
But most of the time we had direct relationship because brands were really understanding also what we were doing, and the initial the initial way we worked with brands were to be very close to the reality of their flagships. So for instance, I can show you also um, wait, I think I lost my
take your time. Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting because when we think of partnerships, we often think of what's, kind of outgoing for the sales and partnership between a brand and a tech startup. But also, there's so much more into actually collaborating and partnering with behind the scene partners that then aggregates solutions to provide the best experience for the brands. And then there's also partnership with agencies along the way. So there are tons of different variety of partnerships that we can explore. So I'm glad that you touched on that.
yeah, I can show you quickly
Sure.
uh, just um, basically. So initially we started in a way that was extremely sorry about the music, but that was very brand experience, like very connected to the flagship of the brands,
Mm,
very photorealistic. And then we've been more into ideas of really changing the experience as well, and going into something that is innovative. Like for instance, like Token Gate Room was a big product of us. So basically you could access a secret room from an NFT that was only for few people that were part of a loyalty membership club, or they could buy the NFT and access to unique product into a room, and of course come back every time to the same room to get access to the product basically.
amazing. This is interesting. Awesome. So basically, there have been so much more innovations that you can explore when you explore these partnerships. And now, considering that you worked in so many different markets and so many different countries, what did you notice in terms of challenges or opportunities within these different cultures?
Yeah, I think that it's taking a lot in consideration, like cultural differences, the way people work as well. We've been also in touch with people in Japan, in China, especially with Farfetch as well. And yeah, it's really understanding also this. I think there is something really important is the scale, the importance of the scale of the infrastructure,
Mm,
because it's like this is not actually working for all the countries. Most of the solutions are not working for all the countries. There are
Mm,
restrictions in China, for instance, or they could also be implications for your solution because it's not matching everywhere, or you may have, for Farfetch we had a different entity, different basically website for China. So I think this is to be taken into consideration, that often like we want global reach, but it's often quite difficult. And also there is a question of like platforms as well, like if things are working only on iOS, or also like integrators, I think are the way also to scale many solutions, like especially today. Like there are some integrators that are really universally used, and more like let's say Salesforce, like Shopify, so AWS. All of these are things that are kind of pillars for scale. And it's also very interesting to see how like these partners have the basically answer meet the criteria of this platform, and can enable to reach much more partners, much more clients because of this. And today, for instance, we see that Shopify is going a lot more and more. Actually, is being used by a lot of luxury brands as well. Not all, but of course, but more and more, because it has the ability to scale much more than doing it by yourself.
mm,
And the recent partnership between Roblox and Shopify, for instance, to enable to sell e-commerce into Roblox. So, and this is actually only with Shopify for now. So it's actually interesting to see and to take that into consideration when also like doing a partnership, to understand what reach, what scale you can have.
that's great. And I have observed that a lot of times these big players like Shopify, all of these big players, Salesforce and so on, there's some challenges with it because with Salesforce, for example, they have their own e-commerce websites and solutions on that, and so they may be kind of a competitive to solutions like immersive experiences. On the other hand, Shopify and these big, tech providers, they may only partner with the likes of Roblox that are also huge. So, how do you suggest the startups looking at partnerships with these platforms that can really accelerate the scale, but they're not necessarily always looking to partner with startups?
Yeah, that's true. And often there is also implications of using specific tools and so on. But I think it's interesting because usually the startups itself is powered by some of these tools. Like they use, AWS, or they use. So having awareness of what are the fundamental tools that are used, fundamental platforms. We were like, working a lot with Unreal Engine, for instance, AWS, So it's like, how do we make the most of this to maximize the impact, because we are also working with other partners that use them as well. And so basically we can combine, we can actually shortcut processes, for instance, ourselves, without even going through them, but just knowing that, because we use the same platforms, maybe we're going to make things easier, or maybe we're going to unlock new doors that we couldn't expect before. So I think that's also important to think of this tech fit, and how this could be an opportunity for building more things together.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, definitely, this could be a consideration. Before we get into future predictions, I want to get into some of the audience questions. So let's look into them. Um, okay, let's look at this one. You've collaborated with both startups and giants like Farfetch and Emperia. How do you see the nature of partnerships evolving in the fashion tech space, and what qualities make a partnership truly transformative?
How do you see the nature of partnership evolving in fashion tech? What quality you make a partnership trade transformative? Um, I think that it's going to happen more and more. I think for me, like it's a source of creativity, it's a source of growth, um, and especially at a time where it's not so easy right now. I think for the market, it's actually a great way to you know bring strengths together and like aggregate strengths and see how to reach more efficiently a client or a brand, because the value proposition is actually stronger. Often, like, to pitch one, it's actually more complicated than having a very solid proposal beginning to the end that is actually already involving many different features and have something that's cannot happen by itself. So I think this is actually really powerful. And the qualities, I think it's transparency, it's trust, it's really to make sure that there is real alignment between the partners as well, alignment in terms of visions as well, and of course, like how do like how this is a win-win basically for both of us. What is the win-win, and how we are going to continue to work together. What is basically the idea behind that, behind the first step. um, so I think that to really understand how this is making more awareness and more money for both of us, I think it's really important as well.
Awesome. So setting the expectations, setting the KPIs in advance, and obviously that will ease the process. Cool. So let's look at these cultural nuances. You mentioned that you worked, with different markets, even Asia. Is there any example of cultural differences and how it impacts, the way you go about partnerships? I think I lost you.
um,
So I said, I'm going to repeat the question.
Navigating nuance. Ah,
Sorry, I don't know, the connection dropped. But
yeah.
I was saying that you mentioned different cultural differences that you experienced. You worked with Asia and different parts of Europe. Um, can you give us an example of these kind of cultural differences and how they impacted the partnerships?
So I'm like reading the sentence. Key strategy work for navigating cultural nuances. Um, like, basically, I just think when we were at Farfetch and we were like, we started with the Chinese market on the virtual try-on. And so, of course, it was a specific, niche as well, and a specific market. But of course, it was not directly with our partner, because we actually initiate the partnership with our solutions later. But it was more to see, the different things to take into consideration. I think that there is always, like, specifically China have their own way of own navigating experience, customer journey approach. And I think it's interesting to see, for instance, like tools like Tmall, for instance, that is also like really helping like luxury brands to be into the right environment for this audience. So they do, like a specific carousel, specific approach to really integrate the brand well into this environment. So I think it's always good to have also like partners that really know the market, be very
Mm.
local, instead of like having something that you can just deploy, in any market. It could work maybe in some, of course, but for very specific market, especially where the user journey and the navigation has a very big impact, it's really important to have someone.
Wow, that's great advice. So partner with those who are from that culture, and they
Mhm.
can navigate that better. Awesome. And Last question from Gabriel. With the rise of immersive shopping experiences, what do you think are the essential elements that ensure these experiences enhance customer engagement rather than overwhelm? How do they fit into the brand journey?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's a great question. It's basically like, of course, you don't want to recreate the website, into a digital world. It's not the idea, you know. So you don't want to recreate the depth, the volume, the overwhelming approach of an e-commerce website that, by the way, have never changed since, ages. Like the structure of a website, of an e-commerce website, is the same from ages, and it's bringing so many limitations for the brands to, you know like, bring their content and bring their and get out of, like, their box, basically. So it's, and there is also, you know um unlimited, like, navigate, like, you keep scrolling, basically unlimited scrolling, and this is so exhausting for people right now, and this is why they want very sharp, impacting experiences that grab their attention and also, like, entertain them. So I think this is also a very important thing, is like how to make sure that these experiences are playful. And
Mm,
this is why we are also getting very close from gaming, is
right.
because right now there is no big differentiation with, like, when you consume a content that you want to buy, or, yeah, that you want to engage with, let's say, and you want to buy, and, like, you consume a content that you just want to play with. And
Mm,
so I think that's important, like the level of gamification, of, like, incentive, why people will actually watch this content. Like, right now we need to think that there is so many opportunities to watch content and so on, like the economy, it's basically an economy of attention, like how to grab this attention and how to make sure that these people will engage is really the first step.
amazing.
So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. That was very insightful. Awesome. So, talking about the future, with all this, technology evolving so fast, generative AI, all this cool stuff, where do you see the future of these partnerships, more specific to fashion tech space, how it's evolving, what would be next?
Yeah. I think that it will depend and it will evolve with, of course, devices, like how devices are going to evolve. I think that immersive experience depends a lot on, like, the mainstreamization, let's say, of the devices. We saw, VR is not there yet. How is this is going to be really part of the day to day of a customer? We saw Vision Pro coming, but it's still, like, we're still not there. It's not like something that people will just buy like this. So I think this is going to make a big difference. And mobile is, what we use today. So how easy, how frictionless this experience will be. And I think virtual try-on was, for instance, exactly this. You have nothing to do. You just use your mobile. Like, this is very known. You have nothing to download. You just, and it's very simple. And I think these are the kind of things we kind of under assess over the recent years with metaverse and so on, of the fact that people really want things in their own environments. They don't have time to learn and to get into new platforms. They want to be, they want to stay where they are, but augment the experience. So I think that's one. I think the importance of the integrators is going also to take more and more space. Like how to rely on Salesforce, on Shopify, and how these companies are going to enable, basically, like, more more solutions, just with bricks, integrated into their platforms. I think also IT is important into the environments of these brands, because IT was a very old school, topic. It hasn't been so much change, and there's a lot of technological debt in this company. How to move from 2D to 3D? I think today we see front end experiences, but back end, are we really on a sustainable approach to enable 3D, to reuse these experiences, to make the most of them, I think there's a lot of work to be done in infrastructure. And I think we will still be in the idea of offline, online, of omni-channel. I think people also, paradoxically, with the rise of digital and all of this virtual experience, people want more and more human connection. They want more and more exclusive offline connections. And I think this is also how the we will be able to mix this digital improvement, augmentation, with like very unique offline connections, basically.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for all of that. Totally see that all coming together. Before we close, I would love to hear where people can find you, how they can support you. And I know you're an amazing artist, singer as well. Tell us what's coming up on that front. Yeah, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. First, I'm always very open to opportunities. So right now I'm working on different projects, but I'm always very keen to hear, from brands or innovators, people in the space that also need, support in growth, in marketing, or in partnerships, especially at a more international level, because my, let's say, value is more about overall approach than a very market specific approach. So I'm always keen to hear for any opportunities. Also, there is a web summit coming in Lisbon. I'm based in Lisbon. If you are coming to web summit, let me know. I'm also basically crafting experiences, and when we talk about online and offline, and virtual and offline, I'm also very much into the offline side, paradoxically, because yes, I also am an artist on the side, and I'm actually singing fado, which is the traditional Portuguese singing, as the only French singer of Portugal, of fado. And basically, I'm also crafting these experiences for people to meet differently and to experience basically this traditional singing. So if you come to Web Summit, let me know, and hopefully we can meet in a music environment.
Beautiful. So you're basically building a community around art and tech. Beautiful. Awesome.
At least, yeah, matching. I think both can happen, and they can actually create, wonderful experiences at different level.
Yes, activating both sides of the brain. Thank you so much, Fiona. This was so insightful. Thank you to Gabriel and everyone else who participated and listened to us or watched the recording. We're going to be back next week with another fashion tech topic. We have G Money from 9DCC on the show, so definitely tune back in Tuesday, 9 p.m. EST, 9 p.m. PST, 12 p.m. EST. And thank you again, Fiona, and wish you the best. And I hope to see you in person soon.
For sure, we should.
Thank you.
See you
Take care.
soon.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.